Good morning. My name is Sandy Kopp, and I'm here with Dr. John Rowlingson, who served as the president of the American Society of Regional Anesthesia from 1996 to 1997. And he also received the Gaston Labat Award in 2015. This interview is part of the activities surrounding the 100th anniversary of the founding of the first American Society of Regional Anesthesia in 1923 by Dr. Gaston Labat and colleagues. Although this organization is not related to the current day ASRA Pain Medicine, which was founded in 1975, it has been said that the current society would not have existed like it does without the work of Dr. Labat and the original ASRA. I'd like to welcome Dr. John Rowlingson. It's nice to see you this morning.
Thank you. Good to see you, Sandy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna mix up the questions between kind of the president questions and the Labat questions, and I tailored them a little bit. But I'm curious, maybe to start out with, how did you choose anesthesia and ultimately pain medicine?
I had a number of opportunities to look at different specialties, like we all did, but I was doing a summer rotation actually in my home hospital, and the anesthesia person there said, you know, you can look around at all these other specialties, but who's going to save your neighbor if they get into serious distress? And he kept making that point every time I scrubbed in and as a scrub tech in the OR, and eventually that made an impression on me such that I did investigate anesthesiology. At the University of Buffalo Medical School, they didn't have a formal department. So I actually then went away for a rotation down to Gainesville, Florida, and where Dr. Gravenstein, or Dr. Modell, I'm sorry, was doing his running the department. And there I got a huge dose of why you should pick anesthesia and not the other specialties. So that kind of set in stone that that's what I was going to be.
Interesting. I love it. So what year, do you remember what year you joined ASRA?
I would have joined, it would have been back, well, probably in the late 70s, because I finished my training in 77, did a fellowship with Dr. Karen till 78, and then it was on the faculty at UVA from 78 on. And he was a very strong motivator that Cos DeFazio and I were going to be involved in this new society that they had created.
And that was actually my next question, was who was the most influential in your decision to join ASRA?
Oh, there's no question. Dr. Karen was a man of tremendous energy and vision. And he was so insightful about the reality that anesthesiology could be prominent in pain medicine, so much so that he came out of private practice and was at the chair of our department for a year and a half before we found the chair, and then he became the founder of our pain clinic, which in those days was unheard of. Our residents got 8 weeks of pain management training at a time when hardly anyone else did. But he made it so interesting and made it so obvious that this was going to be a very important specialty attention as we were going forward, that it was easy to get swept in the enthusiasm, and getting the training and the practical application of other things that we did as anesthesiologists just made so much sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. So now this is something that I don't know, and I feel like I should know. Were you primarily in pain medicine for your entire career, or did you work also in the operating room?
No, I was one of those old-fashioned trainees that I never did give up the operating room. So I had the blessing of working in the operating room, working in the pain clinic, and then eventually creating the acute pain service at UVA. So it was a very broad career, but no, I never gave up the OR. And I think that was very important because Cos and I ran a regional service, if you will, at UVA. There were regional blocks being done, but it primarily was he and I that kind of got that started and kept it going as things got formalized.
Yeah, things have changed, haven't they? I'm sure.
Yes.
If you back to, to the types of blocks you did and how you did them, and what we're doing now. I mean, even in my career, which is obviously shorter than yours, I just can't It's sometimes the difference is just hard to even imagine and to think about what could be next, right?
Well, in a way, it's kind of amazing to look at the timeline and see how long it took for the invasion of regional anesthesia techniques to become more prominent in the practice of anesthesiology. But that's the key. That's where ASRA came in.
Mhm.
They realized early on that there was this tremendous dearth of training, although there was tremendous interest, and then a demand growing in practice, and the practitioners had no way to deliver on the request from their surgical colleagues to do blocks.
Right. So tell me, what do you think are the path of events that led you to becoming ASRA president? You know, getting involved in ASRA is one thing, but ultimately ending up being the president, that's another. How do you think that all happened?
Well, I believe that the early engagement of committee work for me, starting back in the very early 80s, so not very long after the society was reformatted, uh, and then having the opportunity to work with people and perhaps to demonstrate that you could understand a task, get it done, and move on and create and contribute to the vision of the society. Again, Harold Kern was a tremendous motivator that provided those early opportunities. But starting with the research committee and then getting on the bylaws and administrative procedure committee, which nobody wanted to work on, were very engaging opportunities. And it just was kind of a natural progression through the steps to be on the board starting in 1989, and then working on through the officer track to become the president.
That's great. So what were some of the predominant needs or issues of ASRA at that time?
There was a constant need to continue to modify the meetings to meet the needs of the attendees to the meetings. And I have to give the ASRA credit for continually being responsive to the feedback that the individuals provided. We were needing to increase the depth of the meetings, particularly the hands-on workshops. They started in kind of the mid to later 80s and were always sold out. So that the constant feedback was we need more hands-on workshops for those unique opportunities to get the practitioners in a room in a small group setting with a model or a live model and have an instructor there to be able to guide them through the performance of blocks, the rationale for the blocks. It wasn't just how to, it was why are we doing this? What do we expect? And of course, the lectures in the programs would talk about concerns about, well, what if things don't go right? What do you then do? So it really was a package deal. The other issue that came prominent for me was we were beginning to see the founding fathers' terms of participation begin to shut down by the very administrative procedures and bylaws that we had created. So the issue was trying to settle, were we going to use this tremendous fund of knowledge and experience as an advisory board, which they had an advisory board in the very beginning back in the mid 70s when they were recreating the society. Were we going to use this treasure trove of experience and knowledge as an advisory board? How were we going to manage their wanting to participate and in a way wanting to kind of preserve the old-fashioned way of doing things as the specialty was improving? So it became incredibly challenging. And I always felt like I was kind of the one who had the liaison between the founding fathers and whatever the board was doing.
Sure. Yeah, did that get challenging? Was that challenging at times?
It was challenging because the founding fathers were very vocal about that they wanted to continue to be on the board. They wanted their positions funded. They wanted to continue to be able to vote. But it became clear that they weren't able to keep up in an updating fashion with the way practice was changing. And that we would have very lengthy discussions about the evolution of the society that they had created, but that it needed to get modernized. And that became a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine how difficult that would be because, you're right, that knowledge and that experience in the history is just something I mean, I think that's why we're doing this sort of thing, right? We just don't want to miss out on that sort of thing. But you have to continue to move forward. Otherwise, people just, I mean, the new generation wants what they want, right?
Right. And we certainly needed to treat them with the respect and admiration that they deserved. But on the other hand, trying to help them understand why things might need to change. The approach they had used originally wasn't working anymore. One of the most devoted efforts, particularly of doctors Raj and Winnie, was getting recordings. They were very, very, very interested in having tapes of everything, of all the meetings and the workshop sessions and so on. And they continually endeavored to make that an available resource for clinicians to be able to access. And we worked on that. And then, of course, eventually the videography changed and we didn't need to do things that way anymore. But that was one of the little bit of challenges that we had.
Yeah, interesting. How would you say that ASRA moved the bar during your leadership within the field?
There was no question that they're continuing to fill the need to provide educational opportunities to practitioners. That has been absolutely consistent from day one. It is interesting that in 1986, we had a meeting session that would usually end on Sunday morning about noon, and that session wasn't always well attended. But in 1986, there was an incredible volume of people left in the audience, in particular because the topic got turned to pain medicine. And the board noticed that. And when you look at the notes of the board meetings after that, everybody is commenting on, oh my gosh, that was a tremendous success, beginning to increase the access of pain practitioners to a society that was going to become continually devoted to their academic and intellectual and practice needs as well. So we certainly continued that through the 90s by maintaining the demand that the ASA help us acknowledge that there were going to be ASA and ASRA approved criteria and guidelines for pain clinics and for pain practice. So the pain piece began to grow through the 90s. And as a part-time pain practitioner, if you will, that certainly was an effort that I was glad to facilitate with Steve Abram and Dennis Koob and some of the others.
Excellent. So I know you mentioned Dr. Karen as obviously one of your greatest mentors. Do you have others? Who would you list as some of your greatest mentors?
Oh, the other would be certainly Cos DeFazio, he and I were office mates for over 25 years. So at the end of the day, on the occasional opportunity when we were both there, you'd have an opportunity to kind of settle discussions and resolve issues and talk about where we might go. And Cos was a tremendous sounding board for all sorts of things, practice related matters, family matters. It was wonderful. So he definitely would be on that list. And then within the ASRA, the individuals that were willing to kind of provide some reflection, Phil Bromage was a tremendous influence, even though I didn't see him often. Alan Winnie certainly was one who was constantly on your shoulder telling you little things to do and not to do. He was very, very influential as well. And then some of the younger individuals as we got into the modernization of the society, if you will, and there have been movers and shakers all through the years.
That's great. So now this is going to be an interesting question. And I think I'll preface it by saying I am sure that you have an incredible long list of mentees that you are incredibly proud of. But are there any that bubble to the top for you?
Well, I was always interested in those that would get involved actively in the ASRA. And Kevin Borenkamp is certainly one of the individuals who came and got involved and has been involved and has done very well. in more recent times, I know that we've had Ashley Schilling get involved and Lynn Cohan have become involved. So that's very interesting. It was challenging to get some of my younger colleagues to participate in this because at the time there were so many societies, and there were some truly pain medicine dedicated societies, which detracted a little bit from their participation at ASRA. And there were so many practitioners in regional anesthesia that it was hard to get some of the colleagues into the programs because there were so many people who became very capable. But we've had a number of trainees from UVA get interested and participate.
Yeah, no, some of those people are obviously very, very active and involved in ASRA, and you should be proud to have them on your list of mentees for sure. So let's shift gears maybe just a tiny little bit to the Labat Award. What was your initial reaction to receiving the Labat Award?
I was quite surprised because I wasn't sure, honestly, that I had qualified. I had already been rewarded by the society with the DSA and the Benica lecture, and I thought, well, that was absolutely plenty. Thank you very much. And so being asked to do the Labat Award lecture was quite a surprise.
Well, I don't think it should have been, but so thinking back to all of your accomplishments within ASRA, you talk about the DSA, you talk about the Benica lecture, the guest on the Labat Award. Do you view them all equally, or is there one that just is really most important to you?
Well, I honestly, I believe that getting the Distinguished Service Award was probably the most interesting to me. And it certainly is nice to be acknowledged for the time and effort that put in. But again, it was motivated by Harold Caron's spirit for sure. And I've had the ongoing chance to continue to contribute because I actually came back on the board after my normal terms had finished, and then served again with Joe Neal when there was a special need then, and have continued committee work up to and including just finishing on the DSA committee and then now being on the anniversary committee. So that lifelong participation has been incredibly rewarding with again, probably the DSA being one of the most remarkable acknowledgements.
Yeah, I can imagine. ASRA really is it's a family, isn't it? And it has been ever since, my first meeting was probably 2001.
Mhm.
And, when I think back to the people who are influential to me, you rise right up there. You were very active at that point. Your presidency had just ended, Terry Horlacher, Denise Waddell, all very good friends of yours who are mentors to me. It's just, I look at what we're doing now by interviewing these people, and I just think of the impact that you have all had on me and how ASRA has just really become a family. I haven't missed a single meeting, and I know that there's so many people that could say that, right? And
well,
it's
I think that's been one of the distinguishing features of the ASRA, that somehow, some way, there has been the result of finding many talented individuals to help participate. And I know one of the things that Harold Caron always said was, it's great to belong to an organization, but it's far better to belong and to participate. And we've been blessed with so many individuals who have come to the ASRA and have helped create an environment where there clearly is, this is a team effort. This isn't one individual just rocketing away on his or her own. This is clearly a team effort.
yeah,
And it's been that way over the years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I hope that it continues. I think it is. I hope that it continues into the future that way, because I think it is really important. I don't know. I don't feel that in other societies always. So So anyway, I think it's real special, and I thank you for your impact on me within the society as well. So anything else that any special memories of ASRA, anything else that you feel important to share this morning?
Well, when I look back at the career, probably in spite of the innumerable workshops and teaching opportunities and master classes and those sorts of things, I smile back in 1997. We had been receiving feedback from people coming to meetings who said there was way too much emphasis on anatomy doing this regional anesthesia teaching. And the board did just what you did. They chuckled and said, my gracious. So we created a meeting at Hershey, Pennsylvania, entitled Anatomic Relationships in Regional Anesthesia, so that they would realize, don't come to this if you're worried about learning anatomy. And it was an absolutely wonderful weekend with lectures on Friday afternoon, but then Saturday was spent all day in the anatomy lab at Hershey. And they had done a beautiful job preparing these 8 stations that had to do with regional anesthesia. And when you think about what is the goal of ASRA, it was to teach people regional anesthesia and explain how and why it worked and what might happen and what you hope wouldn't happen. And I was doing the lower extremity, lower abdominal section, and we were doing femoral nerve block and sciatic nerve block. And I could see this one individual standing there, she was thinking. And I said, so what do you think? She goes, I wonder if you can block the sciatic nerve from an anterior approach. I said, here are the specimen, kind of take us through what you're thinking. And she came over and she guided the needle down to where she thought it was. And then, of course, the beauty of an anatomic dissection, we were able to fold the muscles and tissues back. And there was the needle, and the look on her face was priceless. And I thought, this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
It was just magnificent. So that's probably my most incredible teaching moment. And it was just that look on her face. If I could have pictured that or caught that, it would have been fabulous. So, but that's what it's all about. That's what it is about, the initiation and discovery of information to create the practitioner's confidence that they can do this and should do it.
Yeah, well, your influence and impact on that is absolutely amazing, and I personally thank you. I know ASRA thanks you. To wrap up here, we've been asking everybody what words, maybe 3 words or 4 if you have them. What words would you choose to define ASRA?
Well, my first choice would be teaching and instruction. There is no clear that this has been the initial effort, even of Gaston Labat, to help bring techniques to individuals. And so when the society was created, that same intention was readopted and has been applied to every experience that the society has endeavored to take on over the years. The other would be fellowship, which gets back to the family-like feeling you're talking about. That this is when you go to the meetings, you just pick up conversations with people that you may not have seen for a couple of years, but it's like it was just yesterday. And I think that's a very important quality of meetings that I'm concerned that the younger people may not get, because they don't have to travel to meetings like you and I do and did. But there's that special quality in the ASRA. Somehow it really has been the kind of family approach to this. I mean, we are all in this together, and you can help or you can learn, and you can do both. So please help us. And the third probably would be perseverance. When I look back at the notes from all the board meetings from the start of the ASRA in 1975, it is very clear that the effort is not going to go away. It's not getting changed. If anything, it gets amplified. When you dealt originally with all the topics related to regional anesthesia, and then it becomes the addition of pain medicine as well, to the point where the society began to adopt those topics in the meetings. We changed the name of the journal, and we continued to provide resources for all practitioners. And remember too, that the ASRA reached out and it helped form ASRA and the Latin American Society and the Asia Oceanic Society. So there has been this tremendous ecumenical approach, all devoted to the primary mission of helping practitioners know more about regional anesthesia techniques and why they're reasonable to apply in their practice.
Yeah. Excellent. I think those are great words. And honestly, I will tell you that those seem to be the words that everybody uses to describe ASRA. So, so there
Very
must
good.
be something to it.
It's good to know
Well,
it's consistent.
right, exactly. Well, Dr. Rowlingson, I thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this morning. It's fantastic. I look forward to seeing you at the meeting. And we'll all get together again then. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sandy. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thanks.